Hello there good people, what is up? Welcome, my name is Marco, and today I wanted to share with you 8 things I believe JavaScript does better than Python. Of course, when you're switching languages, it's always natural to notice what was better about language A than language B, and vice versa. Python is a wonderful language with its simplicity, with its elegant syntax and powerful logic. However, it does come with its flaws. Compared to JavaScript, there are some things that really stood out to me. And this is my list. Scope. Do you know that thing in Python where it says that default arguments in functions are given when the function is defined and not when the function is called? It has its reasons and it's mostly for memory management. But it is annoying. You need to be very careful because if you put a mutable object as default argument in a function and you change it down the line, you basically have changed it for all the subsequent calls of that function. It sucks. In JavaScript, scope is like a neighborhood or an environment, a closed space where the variable can exist without the outside world knowing it. And this is super cool because now I can change whatever I want and nothing will happen to the world outside it. Take global variables for instance. In Python, if you use the same name outside and inside of a function, you'll get a warning. It's a warning, of course, it's not an error. God forbid if you use the name of a global variable outside of a function and as an argument. No bueno. This is annoying considering that there is just a limited number of names that I can give to a specific thing. JavaScript doesn't care, it knows very well where the boundaries lie for variables, and you can even use the same name in the same function for a variable, provided they are given in brackets, so you give it a scope, and you're golden. Dot notation. This was quite frustrating to me, especially at the beginning working with APIs and JSON file in Python. Being basically dictionaries, you need to access them basically in brackets, in square brackets, which is fine, but after a while it gets pretty messy. JavaScript has the most elegant and effective way I have seen so far. You can access all the different keys just with a dot notation, so you can just type dot this, dot that, dot here, etc. This keeps things blazingly simple and also type way faster, not to mention more flexible. If you look for a key that doesn't exist, Python will throw an error, whereas JavaScript will just set undefined and not show it. And if you have ever played with JSON, you know this can happen. Consider a weather API. If there is rain, you will get that in the response, otherwise you won't. Try to explain that to Python. Async. This is a big one. Asynchronous code is the thing in JavaScript and it does it very well. It's not simple at all to understand, especially coming from a language like Python, where the concept of asynchronous code doesn't really exist, especially regarding web development. Asynchronous code is way more efficient because your code won't be blocked by anything. So if you had to load a file from the web, your page can still work and be there for the user. In Python, everything runs from top to bottom. What is up gets executed before of what is below. In this way, you must have a return value from every and each operation. And if this were done for synchronous thing, like the result of an addition, which doesn't take much time, it would be fine. And as a matter of fact, Python was made for that. But on the web, things are not so simple. Data can be slow, sometimes very slow to come through. And if your next step in the chain of operation were to wait for whatever is above it, the runtime would be the sum of all the processes. Whereas with asynchronous code, the runtime is as low as the slowest process, and this is way more efficient. Easier data types. Have you ever heard of tuples or dictionaries? Yeah, in JavaScript they don't exist. You can have arrays, which are collections of items, similar to lists, or use a key value pair notation and get what is known in JavaScript as object. If you wanted anything else, you need to create it, like hashmap, etc. But is this really a problem? It depends. To be honest, in my experience, I never used tuples. I was never in a situation deciding data structures and I was like, what do I use? Binary trees or stacks? Oh, I got it. Tuples. It never happened. I mean, I've used them just for learning. Dictionaries are another beast. They are essential. But JavaScript objects are basically stripped down versions, very flexible and versatile versions of dictionaries. So in the end, I'll take it anyway. Semicolons. The end of a statement in Python is a new line. Of course, since Python uses indentation. Now, indentation can be a good teacher, but a bad friend. There is a standard called PEP 8. There is more than one, of course, but this one suggests that lines shouldn't be longer than 79 characters. Now, it's a suggestion. Now, with 4 spaces of indentation per new line, you understand that even a mild nesting with 2 or 3 levels really limits your options. It is something you gotta get used to. Python is like this, and honestly, I love it despite its flaws. However, in JavaScript, you don't have this constraint. Semantically, the end of a statement in JavaScript is a semicolon, which can be a pain in the neck, but luckily it's not as enforced as in other languages like Java, where you can have errors for missing semicolons. But now I can chain different methods on a new line, and different conditions can be now tied up and more presentable. Ternary operator. I am a big fan of one-line operation logic. Although one-line if-else statement exists in Python, it is not nearly as intuitive as JavaScript ternary operator. You specify a condition to be evaluated, question mark if it is true, colon if it isn't. Good day to you, I'll see you soon. Perfect. Can run in the browser. This is quite self-explanatory. If you were serious about web development, you want to be able to manipulate DOM, the document, the web page. Well, JavaScript runs in the browser. As a matter of fact, JavaScript running on the server is the exception and not the rule. This way, there are tons of dedicated methods and objects in JavaScript to access a web page and animate it, or control it, or shape its content, or even so much more. Switch statement. In my experience with Python, especially software development, which is another beast than web development, there have been cases where I had to chain 5, 6 or even more if statements. Elif is quite elegant, to be honest, but I've always wondered if there were another way to chain if statement, especially if they depended on basically the same expression. In JavaScript there is, and it is called the switch statement. You give it the expression to evaluate and then set the cases for each one, without spending too much time on if this, else if that, else if this other one. Super effective. Alright guys, this is all. This was my personal chart, 8 things I believe JavaScript does better than Python. However, I'd be interested in your opinion, what you think about it. Surely there are things that many things that Python does better than JavaScript. Let me know in the comment below. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and I hope to see you at the next one. As always, stay tuned for more, and bye bye.